It's very disempowering to get to the point where you feel like you need to nag, to feel like all I'm doing is asking for support and I'm having to ask repeatedly. I feel unsupported. I feel unappreciated. I feel like I'm doing this all by myself. Because we've been on the receiving end, because we've also been on the end that's giving the nagging, we know that it's a lose-lose situation. The person hearing it doesn't want to hear it. The person saying it doesn't want to say it.
Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life in marriage? Let's dive in.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. This episode is going to hit home for so many of you. And I know this to be true because this is something that I have encountered personally. This is something I hear often from clients that first start working with me. And this is something that I keep hearing whenever I am a guest speaker inside of other coaches' group programs. And that is, how do I get my husband to take on more without feeling like I'm nagging him all the time, without feeling like I have to nag him in order for him to do things, and to avoid feeling like I need to just take it on because it's too frustrating trying to get him to do it, repeatedly asking him, not seeing him do it, get frustrated, and then just say, forget it. I will just take it on. Obviously, this is too much energy to even get you to do this. And so I will take it on. Okay. So this episode is going to be about why what you're doing isn't currently working and what you can start to change to get a different result. Now, let's rewind back to when you were a kid. We've all been on the receiving end of nagging, unfortunately. So we are all aware that nagging is not fun to listen to. And generationally speaking, that has been how women have spoken to their kids, to their husbands, to get them to do things. And whether it's been effective or not is not the problem. Okay. The problem is that it's very disempowering to get to the point where you feel like you need to nag. It's very disempowering to feel like all I'm doing is asking for support and I'm having to ask repeatedly. Why is that? I feel unsupported. I feel unappreciated. I feel like I'm doing this all by myself. And those are all the feelings that I have felt, my clients have felt, and I'm sure you have felt before you get to the point where you feel like you need to nag. And so because we've been on the receiving end, because we've also been on the end that's giving the nagging, we know that it's a lose-lose situation, right? The person hearing it doesn't want to hear it. The person saying it doesn't want to say it. So what can we do to shift this so that there is more support, so that there is a clear expression of what's going on and the impact behind it? Now, the reason why nagging doesn't work is because it automatically triggers defensiveness. It triggers resistance. It doesn't inspire or motivate anyone to be like, oh, shoot, you are struggling, you need support, or I need to do something to show up for you. Okay, I got it. It doesn't do that at all. What it does is it creates a mothering effect, right? It creates this mother-child dynamic, which I don't even like that that's a thing, But generationally, that is how people have interacted because they didn't have healthy communication modeled to them. Because we see how ineffective it is when we nag our kids, right? Nagging is rooted in having the other person feel like they are not enough, that they are needing to be micromanaged, that they can't be trusted. And it diminishes the connection, whether we're talking about with your spouse or your kids. So instead of focusing on the things that you're noticing, AKA the things that he's not doing, you need to focus on what the real problem is. Like, what is the root of the problem? Because when we nag, it's pretty regularly around surface level issues like responsibilities, household contributions, chores. But what's really needed is a conversation about how you two work together as partners, about how the system is broken within your household, with who owns what, how often it needs to be done, what it means to be done, and what you both need in order to feel fulfilled and satisfied and supported and respected in the relationship. It needs a bigger conversation than just, you didn't take the trash out. You left your underwear next to the hamper instead of putting it in the hamper. If you ever find yourself saying something that granular, I want you to remind yourself, like, oh yeah, I listened to that one episode from Michelle and I need to zoom out, because that's a surface issue. That is a symptom of a larger problem. And again, we don't want to reinforce this parent-child dynamic. I hear from so many women, I don't want to mother my husband. I don't want to feel like I'm his mom. Then stop acting like it. I know it's easy to feel like, okay, I feel like I have to take on this role or nothing will get done. And I'm going to tell you, you don't have to. And this is all from your growing up. Females have been raised to care for other people. Now, is this a bad thing? Absolutely not. But we have to remember that there is a line between being considerate and kind and compassionate and continuing a problem because we are enabling and how we are contributing to the continuation of this cycle, this pattern that is not serving our marriage, that is not serving how we feel within the relationship, within the household, within the partnership, okay? Because all that does with the whole parent-child dynamic is create resentment. And resentment is not where you want to be with your marriage. Resentment creates disconnect. Resentment creates more communication breakdown. Resentment is this nasty weed that grows out of control and will thrive off of anything you give to it. So anytime you sense that there's resentment in your relationship, you have got to work on it right away. When we don't, any example, any experience that you have that is negative in your relationship will only feed that resentment and have it grow. And next thing you know, you're looking at your spouse with so much hatred, with so much frustration, with so much anger that you feel like you won't be able to do anything to repair it. Now, is that true? Not necessarily, but that's a tough spot to be in, right? To look at your spouse, the person you chose to do life with, and wonder, did I make the wrong decision? How did I get here? How did my life turn out this way? So if you feel any inkling of resentment, it's time to work through it, whether it's with support, by reaching out to me, or doing it on your own. Do not let it fester, okay? It's a little tangent there, but I need you to know that, okay? That is poison to your marriage, and you need to address that, okay? All right, so back to nagging. Let's review what I've already shared, just because I went on a side note. All it does is it triggers defensiveness, it erodes your emotional connection. Focus on the root problem, not the symptom. Do not create or continue or reinforce a parent-child dynamic. And lastly, nagging only teaches them to tune you out. Just like how we've learned to be discerning with what we pay attention to with our kids and what we don't pay attention to. My sister has come visit before and she's like, how can you handle all of this noise? She's childless by choice, right? And I'm like, oh, I don't even notice half the time because I have learned what to tune out and what to pay attention to, right? It's kind of like when you know when your kid is excitedly screaming versus screaming because they're hurt, scared, having a hard time, or when they're really crying and you need to go and help them, right? We just have acquired through experience how to discern when we need to take action, when we don't. Well, as adults, we do that in our marriage too. When to tune out, when to pay attention. And so we are training our spouses to tune out. If our go-to method of asking and reminding to do things is done through nagging, okay? Now, I'm sure that you're listening to this and you're like, well, I don't want that. If I shouldn't nag and it has all these negative effects, what am I supposed to do? I'm going to share that with you, okay? So I've made it clear, nagging is not the way to go. It helps no one. You feel frustrated. It's not effective. So let's just ditch that, okay? So here's what you can start to do to have him listen more, have him step up more. And that is truly focusing on the right thing, not the symptom, but the broken system at hand. Okay. So, right now, the pattern that you're in, the cycle that you're in is you ask him to do something. He says yes. He doesn't do the thing. You remind him. He says, yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe he does it for a week or two, goes back to not doing it. You ask him, he doesn't do it. You get frustrated, you nag, and then he does it. And then it just keeps going. And meanwhile, the resentment and the exhaustion and mental load starts to weigh on you, right? You're like, wow, I asked him to do this and I'm still managing this process. Or I asked him to do this and he's not doing it the right way. What is happening? Okay, so here are ways to navigate this. I'm going to include things that you can do and things that I want you to rethink whether you want to continue doing. Okay, so things I want you to do. Start having the right conversations about this. Not in the moment, but maybe in a weekly meeting during a time where nothing else is going on. Okay, you're not upset, you're not feeling emotional, because we know that when we talk, when we're really emotional, the conversation doesn't go well, right? So talk about the bigger problem. Hey, there are things that I want to make sure that we get done as a family so that our house is clean, it's ready for guests, so that we all feel comfortable, so that we know where to find things. You know, whatever your higher goal is or purpose is behind making sure that the house tasks are done. And you guys can work together on what those tasks are. Have him add in some, because there are definitely things that he does that maybe you're not even aware of or you don't notice. And then you add things to the list that you think need to be done. You could even involve the kids in this conversation. Depending on their age, it would be really beneficial for them to see, because then they'll be like, oh, that's why you have me do this. That's a lot of stuff that you do. And then they might even ask to do more, depending on their personality. Okay. Either way, my belief and the belief that I am hoping that you are open to adopting is that we all live in this house together, which means we all benefit from it being taken care of. And that means we all contribute towards keeping it up. There are age appropriate tasks for your kids to own. And then there's the other tasks that you and your husband can share. And you can do this however you want. You can do a chore wheel if you guys don't want to commit to doing this one thing for the rest of your lives. You can switch it up quarterly, monthly, weekly, annually. You can do this however you want. You can choose to cherry pick, right? So you'll pick your favorites and you'll take turns picking them. But whoever picks it owns it. And the beauty behind having this be a collaborative process is that you don't feel like you're driving it. You are working on this together. He's contributing tasks to it. You're contributing tasks to it. He's making decisions. You're making decisions. And this is very much a exercise of partnership and team building. And because of that, he is now saying, okay, I am buying into this. I am going to own doing laundry. Great. Okay, so let's agree on how often we need to do laundry so that our family life gets to run smoothly. So you could be like, okay, we got to do laundry twice a week. Depending on how big your family is, it could be every day, right? Or it could be once every 2 weeks. I wish mine was once every 2 weeks. It seems like it's 3 times a week between towels and sheets and clothes. It's just like never ending. And then you can decide, okay, well, who's going to fold the clothes? Who's going to wash the clothes? Who's going to switch the laundry from the washer to the dryer? Are you owning the whole process? It's almost like this dynamic of when you are first training for a job, right? The manager has to let you know everything on how it works, how often something needs to be done, the quality of work expected, and so on and so forth. Now, as a task manager, that needs to be passed on if the ownership of the task is transferring. But if you guys have not ever had a conversation around who owns what task, then you guys can come to an agreement on these terms. And then as things come up, you can refine that process because sometimes you just don't know until you go through the experience, much like motherhood. We weren't prepared for that. And we learned a lot throughout the process and we're still learning, right? Same as marriage. Things come up that we never anticipated. And that's just a part of life. And so having this larger conversation around who owns what, how often it needs to be done, and what it means to be done. Like, for example, I could say clean the kitchen, and my interpretation of clean the kitchen could be very different from my husband's, right? Mine could be dishwasher loaded, sink is cleaned, hand wash stuff is on the rack, counters are cleaned off. And his version could be like, oh yeah, I just loaded the dishwasher and did the hand washing. But he didn't clean the sink, he didn't clean the counters. So is he wrong by not doing that? No, because to him, he thinks that it's done. So that's why it's so important to have these conversations around what does it mean to be done so that no one is left feeling like they have to micromanage the process and left wondering why they're not fulfilling their task as the owner. This is true for your kids as well. When you pass a task off to them, they also need to know what is the standard that you're expecting. But here's the caveat. If you're passing off a task to your husband that you once owned, whether you decided it was yours or not, you owned, you have to make sure that in this conversation, he is aware that this is something that he now owns. Because a client of mine, she was like, well, I asked him to help me. And from his perspective, he's like, I thought that was a one-off. I didn't realize that she was asking me to do it going forward. So there's a lot of times there's miscommunication going on where one person has this one expectation and the other person did not understand that expectation whatsoever. Does it mean that they did it on purpose? No. Does it mean that you get to be mad? I mean, sure, you can be frustrated, but let's make sure that the frustration is directed in the right place, which is the miscommunication. Okay, so let that just be a lesson. Be like, oh, well, I meant take on the whole thing like forever. And so this needs to be done once a week. What day? are you good with having it done by? And let them say, because the biggest mistake that I see women doing is micromanaging by not knowing how often it needs to be done. Again, difference in definition. Your thought could be the toilet needs to be cleaned once a week, inside and outside of the bowl. And your husband's like, oh, every 3 weeks is cool with me. In fact, there's even one example of someone I had spoken to. She said, yeah, I saw some pee on the toilet and I don't understand why he didn't clean it. And come to find out, he didn't even notice. His standard of clean was so different than her standard of clean. And so, even though he said he would take on cleaning the toilets, it wasn't to her standards. And so she got upset, and he did not understand why she got upset because he's like, well, I'm going to clean it. But it had not gotten dirty enough for him to feel like it needed to be cleaned. Now, is anyone wrong in the situation? No, there was a miscommunication. There were expectations that were unclear and not agreed upon. So it's very important to make sure that you guys are on the same page. Okay? So what I want you to do is to stop with the incessant reminders, to let go of the how. If it means walking away, going to a different room so that you don't have to watch how they're doing it so differently than you, do that. Because at the end of the day, you asked for support. You said, hey, I want more partnership. They're doing it. You have to focus on, did it fulfill the requirements? Like, for example, with how people load the dishwasher differently. Did the dishes get clean? If they did, amazing. Doesn't matter how he loaded it. Because what happens is if you go in there and you're like, oh, you need to load the dishwasher this way, you are now criticizing his support, his contribution. And it may come to the point where he's like, well, then you do it your way if you want it done your way. You do it instead if you want it done your way. Because then it feels like his efforts are unappreciated. And if that's the case, he's going to go save his effort and put it somewhere else more meaningful. So remember, give him positive reinforcement, especially because a lot of times with how males grew up, they did not have this instilled in them to do domestic tasks. They had things like sports and things to achieve. They were told to focus on that. Get a good job, be a good athlete, make a lot of money, be a provider. Whereas we were taught, be a good nurturer, be a good homemaker, be a good cook, take care of other people, right? And so while that's not your fault and that doesn't mean that you don't get any support, it's important to accept that that's where he's coming from, right? So meet him where he's at. Work with him as he's trying to integrate himself more into something that seems really foreign and he didn't grow up witnessing, especially if his mom did everything and his dad did nothing. That is a strange dynamic to switch to. So if he's making an effort, don't tear him down because of the way he's doing it is different than yours. Focus on agreeing on what the outcome is, and then let him decide how he does it. Let him own it. Give him autonomy. No one likes to be micromanaged. I've had a micromanage before, and I hated it. In fact, I swear I performed worse because I felt like I was so under a microscope. Okay? So switch from reminding to collaborating because that is what teamwork is. If you want a partner, treat him like a partner. Talk about the issues and work together on, okay, how can we make this work better because it's not working, right? Use positive reinforcement, allow him to have autonomy, and then make sure that you're clear. Be direct, be concise, be clear, agree so that everyone's on the same page about who owns what, okay? Changing how you approach this and how you communicate will absolutely positively affect how he responds to you. So next time you feel that urge to nag, try these things. And if you know someone that can benefit from listening to this episode, please send this to them. I want to help you all get away from nagging. I don't want you to feel disempowered. I want you to get the partnership that you deserve. And this is how you can do that. Okay? And of course, if you want more support, let me know. Reach out to me. We can have a chat. And I'll catch you back here on the next episode. Bye.
That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.